Saveas was born out of friendship and collegiality and really just sitting around with good friends thinking about how we could amplify the voices and the ideas of these amazing students in studying heritage conservation at USC, and how we could talk more broadly and share their ideas, which are the future of our field. How do we get that out there? And thankfully, I have some friends with some mad skills. I have people who know what they're doing with podcasts. I have people who know what they're doing with communication, and they're all passionate about heritage conservation. And it is a really great combination.
Trudi and Willa and I had conversations around, we'd all been associated with USC's Heritage Conservation program in one way or another. And we started having conversations several years ago and thought it'd be fun to do a podcast because, as Willa will tell you, that's her forte. And she's also a student of heritage conservation, so it's sort of a win-win. And we were thinking about topics, and we just thought, we're sitting on a gold mine of content with this great research that heritage conservation students are doing for their thesis. And then it just sort of sits, maybe not physically on a shelf, but in a digital shelf maybe, and their parents know they did it, but maybe not a lot of other people, but it's really great. And they're doing this work that is based on their passions and their identities and social justice and, Los Angeles, it's very LA. So we said, why don't we just give them the mic and get those stories out into the universe?
When I started the program, I said to Trudi, there's not really much in the way of podcasts about historic preservation in LA. And here we are, we should do something. And Trudi was like, yeah. So we met and we talked, we had some ambitious ideas at the beginning, but we realized that we weren't going to have time, because this isn't our day job, we weren't going to have time to be that ambitious. So we decided to focus on the low-hanging fruit, which is really good low-hanging fruit. And after I kept hearing students talk about the subject of their thesis, how could we not? Because here they're doing such interesting research, and this is a way to get it out there and to let other people know about it. So it's not just a link in the USC Digital Library.
When we started thinking about doing this, it was just before the pandemic hit. And so we actually did our first interview in person. And then we didn't do any more in person because everything had to switch over to Zoom, and it's been a really amazing learning experience. I think for me personally, I've never done audio editing, and I've learned a little bit about that now. And we have the magic master Willa who makes it all sound good, but it's a whole skill set that I didn't have, and now I have a little bit of, just just enough to be dangerous, frankly.
There are a lot of people out there who still think Los Angeles has no history or that people don't care about it. And and Save As, squarely, puts that to rest.
I'm new to the field. I'm just learning. I've been taking classes for the last 4 years, but I'm still learning what's involved in the field and approaches to the field. So for me, hearing the stories, particularly the ones about LA, which is the city I have adopted. I've lived here for 30 years, and it feels like home to me, but I've been so rewarded with learning so much about LA and about pockets of LA and undertold stories about LA, and that has been incredibly rewarding.
I am the person who has really worked with these students on most of their theses. I've either been a member of their thesis committee or chaired their thesis committee, and so I've really worked with them and gotten to know their research, and that's amazing. There's a lot of interesting things that they are bringing to the fore, and it's really fun to hear them talk to someone else about it, because I've been working with them for a year on this project, and suddenly they're telling this story to someone else, and it's so interesting to hear what comes out and what they talk about. And And it's exciting because they're excited about it and passionate about what they're doing.
It reaches a lot of different constituencies. So people who are in the field, working in the field, are going to get something out of it because they're hearing these new, fresh ideas. People who might be interested in the field or maybe don't know about the field, because I didn't really know that much about the field, and know the complexity of the field. Because if you had said, do you want to go into saving buildings, I probably would have said, not my thing. But it's so much more than that. And so I feel like each episode has a different constituency. So, we did this one episode on Pacoima, somebody who was from Pacoima. People who are from that kind of town, and she talked about the legacy businesses there that were so important. Or one episode that we did near the end of last season was about Manzanar, and it was about a class project. I happened to be in the class going to Manzanar to help with the dig to uncover the hospital that was at Manzanar, the Japanese internment camp. So there are so many stories that appeal to people all over the place. And I know people who listen who are not preservationists, they're not in the field at all, but they just love hearing about the stories. And it gives them a new appreciation of their own communities and the idea of saving what's out there.
We hear people say, I heard the podcast and then I went to the place. Somebody said, it's my birthday today. I just heard the podcast on Jewish cemeteries in Boyle Heights, and for my birthday, I'm going there, right? So it connects with people, and then they can go out and experience these places for themselves, which is the whole point of heritage conservation.
I think the podcast really gives voice to the things that the next generation of conservation professionals and leaders are going to be grappling with. And we all know and identify with those places and stories in different ways. And so many of our students have written about their hometown or something that's personal, really personal to them. And I think we can all identify with that in some way. And, how great is it that our students are so diverse? They are coming from all of these incredible backgrounds and bringing that to this work, to their research, and ultimately to the podcast. And it's amazing.
Which is not to say there's not great work going on all over the country. We're just focusing on this one area for now. Who knows? Our plan for world domination just might happen.
That's right. Stay tuned.
And I think when you talk about the future of heritage conservation of the field, it's bringing those diverse voices to light because, not that there aren't uncovered stories about the stories that we've already been hearing for years and, hundreds of years, but it is those stories of African American communities, Latino communities, Asian American communities, LGBTQ community. I mean, the list goes on and on and on that we don't know about as a country and as a society, and that is really important.
Yeah. And sorry.
We could go on and
on. The irony isn't lost on us. Look at us, right? But our hope is, we're gorgeous. Look at us. Our hope is that
You didn't have to go there.
that our hope is that in the future, the people doing this work, even amplifying the voices, every part of this field will look very different.
Yeah.
It's just that we're here now, and we have the ability now to share the mic. And so that's what we're doing.
Right. My students are really interested in what's next, thinking ahead. How is our field going to change? How can they be a part of it? And what's interesting to them is not so much conserving ye olde building, but about how the historic resources that we have can play a role in the future. And that is, we need those voices. We need to hear from the next generation of conservationists about what's important to them and why they want to be in this field, because they are the leaders. They are our next leaders. So we need to listen now.